Welcome back, Croeso yn ôl. Session 3, we move to Agendum 10. I'll call upon the Dean of Newport to present Agendum 10. As we're waiting for him to reach the podium, I think they think we're going to kick off this afternoon because they removed all the knives, did you notice, at lunchtime? Okay, the Dean of Newport will present an item on the Lent course for 2026 trailer. So, Dean Black.
Thank you. Chair, members of governing body, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce the course and the trailer of what it will be. I'll give a taste of what's in store for Lent 2026. The deans of the cathedrals were invited at the beginning of this year to produce a Lent course with the National Comms team, for whom I'm extremely grateful for the work they've put into this. And it's for use in the Church in Wales, throughout the Church in Wales in 2026. This was to be based around our 6 cathedrals and take participants on a journey through Lent. We quickly hit on the idea of travelling from pancakes to palm crosses, and that seems to be a name that's stuck, like a pancake on the floor. Each week, the accompanying video sees the presenter, Cass Murray-Thomas, arrive at each of the 6 cathedrals in turn and reflect on that week's theme. It starts at Bangor with pancakes with the mother and baby group. The reflection is on the place of food, food for the body, food for the soul. Week 2 moves on to St. David's, reflecting on pilgrimage and persistence in faith, persistence being something that was touched on a moment ago in Archbishop Cherry's address. The third week at Brecon looks at penitence and renewal in hope. The fourth week, Refreshment Sunday and Mothering Sunday, takes us to Llandaff and its wonderful Lady Chapel. Our pilgrimage through Lent is fortified with songs of praise, not least for the ways we are mothered and in turn mother others. Week 5, Passion Sunday, arrives at Newport. Here, the grit of urban life, social and societal problems, hunger and political struggle provide rich food for our reflections for a spirituality of urban living. Lent ends on Palm Sunday, or at least this course does, at St. Asaph, a reflection on power, service, and opening the scriptures with William Morgan's Bible translation. There's an epilogue for Easter Day, and we end making Alleluia our song, which it is. Each week has a Bible passage, reflection and questions for either private use or discussion in a group. Course will be fully bilingual and so accessible to all. I invite you to join with us as we journey together in Lent from pancakes to Palm Sunday through persistence, penitence, praise, and passion. And you're now going to be entertained to a trailer video of this course.
Welcome to St. David's Cathedral, to Brecon Cathedral, to Bangor, Llandaff, St. Asaph, Newport Cathedral. Join me on a journey across Wales this Lent, a pilgrimage around all 6 of our historic cathedrals. Come with me as I take you from pancakes to palm crosses, learning more about God, our cathedrals, and the living, beating heart of faith in Wales. This course will be 6 sessions, 1 for each week of Lent, with an Easter Day epilogue video, and together we will explore Bible readings and discussion questions that arise from them. Whether you intend on doing this course yourself or you're getting a group together, it's an opportunity for us to grow spiritually and to draw closer to God as we discover anew the miracle of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection.
There is now opportunity if members want to ask any questions or make brief comment. No? Okay. Then we move to agendum 11, the draft code of conduct for clergy and licensed lay ministers. There is a paper for this item. I will ask the Archbishop to propose the resolution as set out on page 3 within the report, and the Bishop of Llandaff will second the motion. Your Grace.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to bring before you today a proposal that seeks to strengthen and support the ministry of those who serve across our church. The proposed code of conduct for clergy and licensed lay ministers arises from both a deep theological conviction and a practical need within our church. When Jesus spoke to his disciples, he offered a radical redefinition of leadership. He rejected the power structures of the world, where authority is often wielded for personal gain, and instead called his followers to be servants of others. This servant-heartedness is not optional. It is the measure and model of all Christian vocation. Clergy and licensed lay ministers are therefore entrusted with a sacred responsibility. They are called to embody Christ's love in all their relationships, not least with those to whom they minister. Their lives must be marked by humility, integrity, and faithfulness, lived in the power of the Holy Spirit and shaped by the example of Jesus. The church is the community in which this vocation is nurtured and sustained. It is the body through which God's mission is carried forward in the world. Within this body, ministers are not simply functionaries. They are spiritual leaders, pastoral carers, and moral exemplars. Their conduct matters deeply, not only for their own integrity, but for the health and witness of the church. This is why we are proposing the introduction of the Code of Conduct for clergy and licensed lay ministers. The code sets out the personal behaviours that support faithful ministry. It is designed to help ministers serve with integrity, accountability, and compassion. When these standards are upheld, our communities become safer and more life-giving places. Ministers will be better equipped to live out their calling with faithfulness and grace, serving Christ and his church with hearts committed to love, justice, and holiness. This proposal, though, did not emerge in isolation. It is part of a wider conversation within the church. In August 2024, as part of a broader review of disciplinary and related matters, the Bench of Bishops established a working group to review the professional ministerial guidelines and evaluate their continuing relevance for those in ordained and licensed lay ministry. After careful consideration, the Professional Ministerial Guidelines Review Group, comprising both lay and ordained representatives, concluded that rather than revising or replacing the current guidelines, it would be more beneficial to introduce a new basic code of conduct. This code would serve as a practical and accessible resource for DDOs preparing candidates for discernment, for St. Padans in forming ordinands, and for the wider Church in Wales as a tool for clarity and accountability in ministry. The proposed code articulates clear behavioural standards, especially in areas not addressed in sufficient detail by the existing guidelines. If adopted by the governing body, the code would complement and sit alongside the Church's broader framework for ministerial accountability and formation, including the Holy Scriptures, the Church in Wales Constitution and Canons, the Book of Common Prayer, and the existing professional ministerial guidelines. The code does not replace these foundational documents. Instead, it seeks to complement them, offering a practical framework for daily ministry, one that is rooted in our theological tradition and responsive to the realities of contemporary pastoral life. For ordained ministers, the clergy terms of service would be amended to make clear that following the code is a requirement of ministry. The draft code has been carefully reviewed and endorsed by both the Bench of Bishops and the Standing Committee. Constructive discussions at both bodies have led to refinements, ensuring the code is both theologically grounded and pastorally practical. As such, the Bench and the Standing Committee are united in their desire to introduce this first section without delay, recognising the urgent need for clear, accessible standards in ministerial life. The fact that the code is not yet all-encompassing does not present a practical problem. Along with the fact that it will complement, not replace, the existing professional ministerial guidelines, the code has been structured with flexibility in mind. While this initial section focuses on foundational principles of personal and pastoral conduct, it has been intentionally designed to allow for the future addition of further sections. For example, on areas such as sexual behaviour and financial integrity, as and when the Bench and governing body deem necessary to bring these forward. And so we bring the code before you with confidence that it will strengthen our shared commitment to faithful, accountable, and compassionate ministry. I commend this proposal to you and invite your support in adopting this code of conduct as a vital step forward in the life and witness of the Church in Wales. I propose the motion before you.
Bishop Mary.
Archbishop Cherry has said everything I think that needs saying to introduce this. This, in my opinion, is urgently needed work. So I'm really pleased to be able to second this motion.
Thank you. We now open the motion to debate for question and comment from the floor of governing body. A reminder that standing orders are in force. If you intended to speak, please give your name and membership category, and those who wish to speak through the Welsh language, please do so. Feel free to do so. So is there anyone who wishes to make a comment or ask a question? If you do, please make your ways to the side so that we can call you to the lecterns. Canon Woolard, do you want to go first?
Thank you. Chair, Archbishop, members of governing body, Caroline Woolard, lay elected Monmouth. This is just two little tiny points, but in sections 117 and 119, it talks of seeking advice and seeking professional help immediately. Can I ask what consideration has been given to who people seek advice from? And is there a budget for professional help, which will have to be sought at very short notice, so presumably without going through a grant application process? Thank you.
Thank you. Archdeacon Llandaff.
Thank you, Chair. Rod Green, nominated Archdeacon, Llandaff Diocese. I welcome this new code of conduct and appreciate the desire for it and thinking behind it very much. I agree with Archbishop Cherry and Bishop Mary. This is vital work. I do have one concern, though, that I've shared at the Governing Body Standing Committee, and I wanted to share with Governing Body here today. I remain very concerned about the decision to define spiritual abuse as a category of abuse distinct from the other legally recognized forms of abuse listed in the document. The Standing Doctrinal Commission report, Walking in Integrity, a theological reflection on the use and misuse of spiritual authority, explicitly rejects this approach, something the governing body has commended. Responding to concerns from the provincial safeguarding team, the Commission decided to adopt the legal definitions of abuse rather than adopt a term ill-defined and itself open to misuse. I recognize that the Code of Conduct makes reference in the glossary to the report, but it seems to me a fundamental contradiction remains. I would much prefer paragraph 1.5 to make reference to spiritual abuse only as shorthand for the legally recognized forms of abuse, but within the context of religious faith and ecclesiastical authority.
Yes, please. Yep.
Matt Davis, cleric elected Monmouth Diocese. I won't completely echo the comments made by the Archdeacon of Llandaff, but I do agree with him. I think there is a slight trouble with using non-legal terms in this document. And my main reason is I have been and have witnessed spiritual abuse. I do not want this document and this working paper to fall flat at the first hurdle if someone is brought under it because they managed to weasel their way out of it because of definitions not being clear. I think it is something that is definitely needed and should be wholeheartedly embraced. I completely agree with the need of the document. I just want the document to work and also to be enacted on correctly and appropriately with the correct safeguardings put in place to make sure that that can happen in a good way. Thank you.
Dean St David's.
Sarah Rowland-Jones, nominated Dean St David's. And I put my hand up. I was the chair of the work done by the Doctrinal Commission on that piece of work, spiritual, walking in integrity and the use and misuse of spiritual authority. And as the Archdeacon of Llandaff said, we strove very hard to try and disentangle all the various different categories and to be very clear and definite in the language that we use. So I think building on what he said, and I'd like to endorse all that he said, I would like to have seen much more of a read across between that work and this piece of work. I very much agree that a code of conduct or something of this kind is necessary and urgent, and the principle and the process, etc., I would endorse. But I'm not sure that this is the text to do it. I think there is a really serious issue about definitions of what we mean by abuse. Legislation provides for 5 different categories. And if you transgress those, you're breaking the law. But we have other things like spiritual abuse, even bullying, for which there are no defined, clear parameters. And in the document itself and in the appendix, no distinction is made between this is naughty and this is illegal. And I think that that needs to be teased out as well. So to conclude, this is necessary, but it feels like it's 3/4 of the way there. It's undercooked. It's attempting to be simple in the drafting, it's too loose. It needs more rigor, more clarity, to be more robust. And as it is, I can't support it.
Leonie.
Leonie Oxenham, lay member for Diocese of Monmouth. Firstly, wanted to say that I very much welcome the Code of Conduct. I agree that it's urgent and that it needs to be introduced as soon as possible. However, very much pick up on Archbishop Cherry's comments about that being not yet all-encompassing, and think that seeing this as a working document to move forward from would be really helpful. Particularly in relation to its role in addressing clear behaviour standards that aren't evident within the professional ministerial guidelines so far. I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have said in relation to spiritual abuse, but I do support that. But I think it would be really helpful for some further work to be done in relation to definitions in the document to ensure that they align with what is our understanding across the province, but also our legislative and legal background in relation to Welsh Government. Yes, spiritual abuse has been spoken about, but I also think some of the things, particularly around prohibited substances, where it would be very helpful to not just talk about prohibited substances, but recognise that substances can be used or misused, and many legal substances can be misused. So I think that there's something there for us to be able to just tweak a little bit to be able to ensure that it fits within the legislative context of our nation here, and to ensure that it does go that step further to provide more details than the ministerial guidance does currently. Thank you.
Archdeacon of the Gwent Valleys.
Stella Bailey, nominated Archdeacon for the Diocese of Monmouth. To dishonestly appropriate property belonging to another with the intention of permanently depriving another of it. And all the legal people in the room will know that that is the basic definition of theft in our nation. Well, for many centuries, we lived with the definition that was simply, thou shalt not steal. And at one time, you'd be deported to Botany Bay for taking a loaf of bread if you upset the local squire. But for centuries after that, we worked out what that definition started to look like. What's beautiful of that definition as well is that every single word within it also has a definition behind it. So, says the clever lawyer, my client did not intend to permanently deprive this gentleman of his car. He only intended to borrow it and would take it back the next day. So what do we have? Taking a vehicle without an owner's consent. We don't start with the perfect thing. Actually, within all legal cases, law is shaped and nurtured by the cases that we face. It's a living and breathing journey, not a moment where a document is put in front of us and we say this is the perfect definition for us to work on. Many years ago, before I had grey hair, before the iPhone was invented, before Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all of that sort of stuff, there was a thing called MySpace. And as a young police officer, I had to deal with a case where one young person was bullying another young person over MySpace. And we sat there, listened to what had gone on, and went back to the office and worked out, well, what is the offence here? There clearly is not appropriate behaviour going on. But what offence is it? It was the dawning age of the internet. And there was no clear offence that defined what do we do when somebody's bullying, offending, threatening someone in this thing that no one fully understand would turn into the beast that it is today. We worked it out, as you do in these situations, and we dealt with the matter in front of us. 20 years later, we have a whole various offences in relation to the abuse of online systems, and we have case law to back that up. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that this isn't right at this stage because it's not perfect and not given us fully what we want. Would it not be more sensible to say, let the life of the church and the Holy Spirit help guide us into the living application of what does it look like for us to be Christ-like in our ministry and life? Because right now, as an archdeacon, I can tell you, what we have is letting us down. And time and again, we face people's ministry and people's worshipping life being ripped apart because we're unable to deal with what's in front of us. Let's go on a journey together and say, this might not be perfect, but it's not the final dot on the I and the final T line across the T, but let's live it out and see where God takes us with it. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Bob Evans, Lay, Monmouth. I think this is a good, robust document, and I would like to support it. It deals very much with behaviour, as we've discussed. Some of that behaviour has legal foundations and other standards attached to it. But an awful lot of it is about judgment. So I was just interested to ask what thought we had given to policing this document, how we enforce it, what happens if somebody breaches it, and what the sanctions are.
Thank you. Canon Lightbound.
Andrew Lightbound, cleric elected, Monmouth. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody else. I would like to support what Archdeacon Stella was saying and respectfully, hopefully, disagree with the Dean of St David's and I think the Archdeacon of Llandaff. One of the strengths to me of this document is it takes things that are legally defined and adds things that aren't legally defined. If we're going to take spiritual abuse out by definition using that logic, because there's no legal definition, bullying must also come out. For the same argument must apply. There is no legal definition of bullying either. For me, the strength of this document, and I don't think it's 75% there, I'm not saying it's 100% there, but it's a long, long way there, is that it takes, if you like, mores of behaviour around legally defined issues and adds ethos and culture back in by including bullying and spiritual abuse. It goes back to the culture of the church, not just the legislation of the church. And I think it would be an appalling mistake to take spiritual abuse and bullying out just because we can't forensically define them. We use language in the church each and every day and every week that cannot be forensically defined. That's part of our theological language. So let's not over-define. Let's not make an attempt to be perfect become the enemy of good. Let's understand that this has got some legal definitions in, and it's got some definitions in that speak more to ethos, ethics, and culture than they do, if you like, the mores of the land. And let's go with it. And if we don't get it right first time, as Archdeacon Stella said, let's refine it. Let's review on it. Let's theologically reflect on it. And let's do what the church should do with documents such as this.
If anyone else wishes to speak, can they come to the sides, please? Thank you.
I'm Canon Hannah Rowan, elected from Monmouth Diocese and a layperson. And really welcoming the reminder of the three things we're supposed to say when we stand up here. I was able to be part of this group as one of the lay people involved, and I believe the reason that I was originally invited to be part of this group was having asked a question about a year ago when we were looking at some of the disciplinary work. And I sort of said, we've got what happens when you've really messed up, you've broken the law, you've fallen off the cliff, if you like. And then we've got this whole area where we trust that people within the church and that our colleagues are reflective practitioners and, you know, we'll pay attention, we'll listen. But we're missing some of the middle because most people don't go from being absolutely fine to suddenly making some sort of grievous, illegal mistake. Generally speaking, there are signs, there are things that happen. There may even be misunderstandings and that kind of thing. So for me, the key to this document is actually precisely that it's not bound by only the legalities, but as Canon Andrew and Archbishop Stella were saying, that we can do something before we get to that point, and that it adds a degree of additionality. I think it's really interesting that we spent some time this morning talking about Archbishop Cherry's address, talking about culture, starting to think really practically about what do we need to do in order to make this a reality. And there are areas in our province where we know things are going really, really well in this regard, and areas that are really struggling. And one of the key things, of course, is you can encourage good behaviour. We hope that we all aspire to good behaviour, but sometimes things go wrong. And the strength of commitment to culture has to ask the question, what do you do when it's not good enough? By which I'm not asking just what happens when someone breaks the law, because I would hope we already have a fairly straightforward answer to that. But when someone is falling far below our cultural aspiration, and I think bullying is a brilliant example of that. It's not defined in UK law, but I'm sure we've all had experiences or seen things happen in our life and have seen the corrosive impact that bullying has actually on the whole body of Christ as on the rest of society. We do need to equip people to tackle this. And as others have said, we might not have got the definition perfect right now, but I believe we've got a good start, and we can tweak that and we can build on that as time goes by. The other just small thing I wanted to pick up on, I'm really sorry I've forgotten your name, but about substances. Just to let you know, we had a really long and interesting conversation about this and about how it should be defined. One of the things that you'll notice if you read very, very closely is that there is something around not being in a position where one is impaired by mind-altering substances. This is to recognise that some medication, for example, antidepressants, are mood-altering, but they're probably going to make somebody less impaired rather than more at the point at which that's what they need. Similarly, medications taken for ADHD and various other things. So there has been some close reading around substances, and we've made some changes already. But I just wanted to share that thinking with you, because I think it's a good question, and it's one that we have had to think about. Hope you don't mind me sharing that. Thanks very much.
Mr. Mullins.
Tony Mullins, elect lay Llandaff. My background is social work. I've got a degree in social work, BA's honour. Dr. Neil Thompson was a prolific writer, and I used his books, and he got me where I was as a practicing social worker. He had a very thin tome, which I've still got in the house, how to combat bullying in the workplace. It surprised me that professionals should actually commit a piece of work to bullying, which I find abhorrent. Now, my surprise and my naivety is that there are possibly senior clerics, and members of the lay who are appointed to senior roles of trust and management, who are possibly capable of committing some of these offences, bullying being one of them, emotional abuse, harassment, physical abuse, coercive control, sexual abuse, financial abuse, or spiritual abuse. My particular stand on this is I'm surprised, because we're all here in the governing body because we have a commission by Christ. My faith goes deeper than the person you see, and that applies to everyone, I think. So this is something that shouldn't be necessary if people are practicing in the word of Christ, in the shadow of Christ, in the light of Christ. This shouldn't be necessary. But I will say I support it because something at this stage is better than nothing. So I support.
Reverend James Griffiths.
Jim Griffiths, clergy co-opted, Llandaff. I just wanted to briefly respond to what Archdeacon Stella has shared, and I agree with those who've spoken already, see great value in introducing a document of this nature. But I think it's important that the document that we introduce is as clearly defined as possible. We're effectively being offered a choice. Do we adopt the document as it is now, or do we wait and ensure that it is carefully defined before we adopt it and adapt it as we go along? The analogy was made with the English and Welsh legal system. If you look at the history of that legal system, because legislation was ill-defined, it is littered with miscarriages of justice. The consequences of introducing a piece of work of this nature that is insufficiently defined will have real consequences on people's lives. And so for that reason, I would urge governing body to act prudently and ensure that this document is as carefully drafted as it can be at this stage before it is implemented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Geraint John, elected cleric, Diocese of Llandaff. In my role as a union rep, I've been involved with lots of cases of poor behaviour, some of which have led to disciplinary action and some have not led to disciplinary action. And I think a document like this is extremely important in filling that gap between those two places. I hear some of the concerns around spiritual abuse, but the document is quite clear in that if this is causing harm, it's a problem. It recognises that some of these things are deemed to break the law, whilst others are not unlawful. But nonetheless, if behaviour falls short of the standards of Christian love, compassion, and honesty, then we need something to hold us to account. Clergy and licensed lay ministers do need to be held to account, and I'd urge governing body to please support this bill. Thank you.
Dean of Llandaff. And are there any others who want to make a comment? Dr. Bray.
Jason Bray, elected Dean and Diocese of Llandaff. I too was a member of the Doctrinal Commission that looked at this, and I also share the misgivings of the Dean of St David's and the Archdeacon of Llandaff. However, just really a practical point. If we are going to pass this now, given the fact that several misgivings have been expressed, how often do we review it and how do we change it? Because the Church of Wales has a habit of sort of basically issuing things and they are then basically preserved in aspic, and then you have to sort of go through the process all over again. Thank you very much, Diolch.
Esgob Tiddewi.
Dorian Davies, Esgob Tiddewi, Cymraeg. Dwi'n credu bod y ddogfen hon yn hanfodol ar gyfer lles ac iechyd yr eglwys yng Nghymru. Rwy'n cytuno yn llwyr gyda Canon Woolard ar hyn y mae hi wedi ei ddweud. At bwy y ddylem ni droi pan fyddwn wynebu'r materion hyn. Nid yw'r ddogfen yn ymwneud yn unig a sut rydym ni'n gweithredu fel Cristnogion, ond bod y weithdrefn briodol yn cael ei dilyn.
And everybody's last chance to make a comment. Time's up. Your Grace, would you like to make right of reply?
Thank you very much, Chair, Cherry Archbishop. Thank you to everybody who has contributed to this discussion. As has been pointed out, this document is really needed now. If we don't pass it today, then we'll have nothing. and those who have to deal with issues of bullying, harassment, and all the rest of it, that's mainly archdeacons and bishops, will have nothing to help them that stands outside the legal documents that we already have. So I do urge you to vote in favour of this. We have noted the comments that have been made. I think for me, it's a really important part of setting this new culture that we all want to see. It sets very, very clear expectations of behaviour for all those who are exploring ministry, for all those who are training for ministry, as well as those who are already in ministry. And it feels to me a really important part of that journey for those who are discerning, that they recognise the kinds of behaviours that we expect to see in the church. It should be no surprise. They are addressing issues that are not Christ-like, but as people have said, we do fail and fall short. And when we do fail and fall short, we need something to help us to hold people to account. And I believe that this does this sufficiently. I recognise the issues around definitions of bullying and spiritual abuse. There's something at the end of the document, in the appendix, I think, that states quite comprehensively what we understand spiritual abuse to be, even though it's not a legal definition. And there is that crossover to the document Walking in Integrity. And if you haven't read that, then I do urge you, because it's an outstanding document and something that we all should be aware of. But this is a really important next step for us. I understand that we may well need to revise it further down the road, and I think we've heard that and we will attend to that. I think Caroline's comments about support and financial help for those needing training are valid, and we need to look at that. I mean, we would hope that people would feel able to go to their archdeacons, or if not their archdeacons, their bishop with concerns. We may need to put other people in place as well. But we really would be struggling big time if we don't pass this today. At least then we'll have something for the archdeacons and the bishops to work with, which will be an important step along the way. So if I can urge you once again to vote in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Grace. This is a vote now by simple majority vote of the governing body. The wording of the motion can be found on page 2 of the accompanying paper and is scrolling across the screens at the moment. Voting by card, so everyone please remember to show your voting cards. All those in favour of the motion, please show. I'm going to ask for a full count because of this one. So please keep your cards up in the air for the moment. Okay, if you'd like to put your hands down. All those against the motion now please show with voting cards, please. And finally, any abstentions? Could I ask the tellers to give me the figures, please? For the motion, 60. Against the motion, 11. Abstentions, 8. The motion is carried. Thank you. We now move to addendum 12, which is the bill to incorporate into the Book of Common Prayer an additional order of service for confirmation. There is again a booklet for addendum 12. This is where we get a little bit technical. Okay? So, under the bill procedure, the governing body has been informed by the Select Committee, and the Standing Committee has deemed the bill to be non-controversial. Therefore, unless a request is made by any one diocesan bishop or any 10 other members of the governing body, the bill will be voted on without further consideration or debate, in accordance with Chapter 2, Section 29(3). Therefore, if members wish to either consider the amendments proposed by the Select Committee or to hold a debate on the motion that the bill be passed, they now need to request that the bill be sent to committee stage. This is your opportunity. I see no members standing and I see no bishop. So there you are. Then we move then instead then to the introduction of the bill as stands, and I ask the Bishop of St Asaph to formally propose the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. Gregory Cameron, Bishop of St Asaph, Archbishop, members of governing body. You will know that the way in which liturgy operates within the Church in Wales is we've got the Book of Common Prayer, 1984, which remains the official standard of worship within the Church in Wales. And then we have a number of alternative services which are offered, which have a more contemporary feel. In 2006, the Church in Wales adopted such an alternative rite of confirmation, but by 2015, it was felt that that rite was beginning to get a little tired. And so in 2017, governing body authorized a revised rite, a revised alternative rite, which could be used for an experimental period of what was intended to be 5 years. Somehow, no one noticed in 2022 that the experimental rite had been in use for 5 years. And if you went to the Church in Wales website, you would find that we had 3 orders of confirmation: the 1984 rite, the 2006 rite, and the 2017 rite. And I can tell you, when I went round to parishes, any or all of those orders could be being drawn upon in the particular churches where I was administering confirmation. So we clearly needed to tidy that up. The bench had a look at the 2017 rite and reflected from our own use upon that rite. And the only real criticism we had was that it was very wordy. So we sought to slim it down somewhat. It then went through the Select Committee process that you've just heard about. And the only 2 further changes were to allow people, clergy or other sponsors, to introduce the candidates by saying Bishop Cherry, Bishop Dorian, or whatever, rather than Right Reverend Father in God, Right Reverend Mother in God. And our legal advice spotted that there were 2 sets of notes. And this seemed ridiculous. One set of notes arising from the combined baptism and confirmation service, and another set of notes solely for the confirmation service. So we integrated them, creating one set of notes. What you've now got is an order of confirmation that the bishops like, that the select committee likes, and hopefully now you can decide for yourselves whether you like it as well. And if you vote for this additional order this afternoon, then we will have 2 orders for confirmation, the 1984 prayer book rite and this alternative contemporary rite. I beg to move.
The motion will be seconded by the Archbishop. Your Grace.
Formally second.
Thank you. We move to a simple vote. However, we vote by orders as is tradition for bills of this nature. So first of all, I will ask the order of laity. I hope the tellers are ready. Yep. The orders of laity, those in favour of the bill, please raise your cards. Order of laity, Bishop. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All those against from the order of laity? Any abstaining from the order of laity? No, thank you. You know this is an exciting bill when the bishops are really keen to vote. So let's move then to the House of Clergy. All those in favour of the motion, please. Okay, thank you. Any opposed? Any against the motion? And finally, any from the order of clergy who are abstaining? No. Okay. Thank you. If I could ask the tellers to come back with the figures. As is custom, we find out what the totals are for the houses of laity and clergy. We require a 2/3 majority to pass, and then we ask the bishops what they want to do. So, in the House of Laity, for the bill, 49, against none, abstentions none. In the House of Clergy, for the motion, 35, against none, abstentions none. I will now ask the bishops if they wish to withdraw before voting. Is that yes, you do? Or no, no, yeah? You want a cup of coffee or something? Okay, in which case I'll ask the bishops then, please, if you could vote those in favour of the motion. Thank you. I will not ask for, even my maths is good enough to realise that that's unanimous in the House of Bishops. So that's 5 votes from the House of Bishops. The bill is therefore passed, and so I cede the chair to the Archbishop to promulgate the bill.
I invite you to stand, please, those who are able. I hereby promulgate this bill as a canon of the Church in Wales, and it shall henceforth be a law of the Church in Wales and binding on all members thereof. Thank you.
Okay, we move then to Addendum 12. Addendum 12, not Addendum 12, Addendum 13 even. Addendum 13, which is the Porvoo Communion motion to admit the Faroe Islands into the Porvoo Communion. I call upon the Bishop of St. Asaph to propose the motion.
Chair, while we're on a roll, let's see if we can get this one through. Before I actually speak to this, Chair, might I just refer to one of the items this morning about the letter of the bishops, Ray Garza.
Yes,
Indeed, we have received a reply, a 4.5-page reply from the Commonwealth and Foreign and Development Office. And that reply, I understand, is going to be circulated to you for you to be able to read it. It was circulated to the bishops in early September, and it makes some interesting reading, shall we say. Now, to turn to the matter in hand, I'm sure you'll all be aware that the Porvoo Communion was brought into being in 1992. And this was a result of the regional talks between the Anglican churches of the United Kingdom and Ireland with the Scandinavian evangelical Lutheran churches. And it had come about as the result of quite some protracted negotiations, but the Porvoo statement said that the evangelical Lutheran churches of Scandinavia and the Anglican churches of the United Kingdom and Ireland could recognize each other as full and true churches with authentic ministries of word and sacrament. So much so that if you travel to any of the countries within the Porvoo Communion, when you're there, you're regarded as a member of that church. Some people may remember that recently the Bishop of St. David's took a trip to Iceland. And what he may not have realized is that while he was in Iceland, he was a member of the Church of Iceland. And equally, any friend that he invites back to the Diocese of St. David's would be a member of the Church in Wales while resident with us, and indeed could apply for any of the vacancies in his beautiful diocese if they were a cleric. It's a very good agreement, and although it doesn't impact on our lives very much, to be honest, it is seen as a sort of gold standard in Anglican Lutheran relationships around the rest of the globe. North America has worked on something similar, and negotiations, talks are continuing to happen about whether it could be extended to the whole of the relationship between the Anglican Communion and the Lutheran World Federation. I won't bore you with the detail. Something slipped through And that is that just before the Porvoo Communion came into being, the Church of Denmark granted autonomy to the Evangelical Lutheran Church of the Faroe Islands. So although they'd been part of the negotiation, they never became part of the Porvoo Communion. But they'd like to be, and they have formally applied to become members of the Porvoo Communion. If you wish to become a member of the Porvoo Communion, every other member church has to agree. And so if you'd like to go on holiday to the Faroe Islands and be a member of the Church of the Faroe Islands while you're there, please vote in favour.
I see that the Bishop of St David's has been texting his friends in Iceland already to notify them of vacancies. But while he's doing that, I'll ask that Her Grace, the Archbishop, if she would please second the motion.
Thank you. I formally second.
Thank you. The motion is now open for debate. If anyone wishes to make comment or ask a question, please do. Bishop of Llandaff.
Bishop Mary, Bishop of Llandaff. In Llandaff Diocese, we have a really fruitful relationship with one of the Porvoo churches, with the Diocese of Uppsala. It's an incredible relationship. It's a really extraordinary partnership. It's a church, it's probably one of the richer Christian churches. It faces some of the same missional challenges that we do. And the shared learning and the shared hospitality is really extraordinary. We have really benefited from this partnership. So, for example, I was invited last year to the ordination of some of the clergy, and I was given the fullest possible hospitality, invited to lay hands with the ordaining bishop on those being ordained. The partnership invites us sometimes to be braver in our hospitality. It invites us to think about mission and ministry and the relationship between finance and wealth. I just think it is a wonderful blessing, and I really support this inclusion and would encourage us to pursue this relationship.
Thank you. Matt?
Matt Davis, cleric, Monmouth Diocese elected. To my shame, the first time hearing about the Porvoo Communion was when the papers came through. Seeing that when it was created, I was 3 at the time, so forgive me for not remembering. But I think it is a wonderful thing also connecting with people from the churches in Scandinavia as well, online and other things. It's opened my eyes to how rich their heritage is. And I'll fully support this going ahead, but I'd like to see a greater links and greater strength in this, because I'll hold my hand on my heart and say I did not know that this was a thing, and I'm sure there's other members who didn't know it was a thing either. But I'll be brave enough to say that, and say that I think it'd be a wonderful relationship to develop, and I'm sure Bishop Cho would also like to send me to the Faroe Islands sometimes as well. It would be a lovely thing to see develop and grow. So thank you.
Anybody else? No? In which case I ask the Bishop of Asaph whether he wishes to make any response to the questions. Thank you. Then we move then to a simple majority vote of the governing body with your voting cards. All those in, wait for it. keen today. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? No. Thank you. The motion is passed. I now cede the chair to Canon Justin Davis, who will take us to Agenda 14.